They called her crazy before she even finished her sentence. "Ma'am, stop yelling. You're disturbing the lobby." Officer Briggs didn't bother to hide the smirk twisting across his face. He stood with his thumbs tucked into his vest, staring down at the black woman standing in front of him as if she were a problem he had to get rid of. Her name was Aisha Turner, a quiet, composed 42-year-old mother of two. But that morning, she didn't look composed. She looked terrified, the kind of terror that makes your voice shake even when you're trying to sound brave. "Sir, I am not yelling," she insisted. "I just need a supervisor. Please." "Oh, here we go," Briggs said loudly, waving his hands for the other officers to hear. "Another one demanding a supervisor. Another internet lawyer." That got a laugh. Two other officers turned. One whispered something under his breath. Briggs snorted. "Lady, you're in a federal building. You don't just ask for a supervisor like you're ordering fries." Aisha tried again. "I have federal clearance." Briggs cut her off. "No, you think you have clearance. Big difference." Then he tapped his temple and added, "You sure you're feeling all right today? You seem confused." That word, confused, was used on her more times than she could count. She took a shaky breath. "Sir, my appointment is with—" "Look," Briggs snapped, stepping closer, towering over her. "This is the last time I'm saying it. You can't just walk in claiming you're meeting someone important. Everyone thinks they're special." People in the lobby slowed down, watching the scene accumulate weight. Phones subtly lifted. Aisha's heart hammered. "I'm just trying to check in," she whispered. Briggs laughed so loud the sound bounced off the marble walls. "Oh, now she's whispering. First yelling, now whispering. Ma'am, if you're having some kind of episode, I can get medical staff." The word hit her like a slap. "Episode?" Aisha blinked. "I'm not—" "You're acting unstable," Briggs declared loudly. "And now you want a supervisor. For what? Because you walked into a secure building without proper ID?" She reached into her bag. "I have proper ID. That was all he needed." Briggs lunged forward, grabbed her wrist, and slammed her bag down on the security table. "Hands where I can see them." A gasp rippled through the lobby. Aisha froze. "Sir, please, you're hurting me." "Not my problem," he said, twisting her wrist slightly. "Stop resisting." "I'm not resisting." He smirked again. The kind of smirk officers wear when they think they're untouchable. "That's what they all say." The humiliation didn't stop there. He dumped out her bag. Her planner, phone, lipstick, asthma inhaler all scattered across the marble floor. Then he said it. The line that would follow him for the rest of his career. "You're not meeting anyone important. You're just another unstable woman trying to make a scene." Her chest tightened. "Sir, please, I just need a supervisor." He laughed again, louder this time. "A supervisor! For you!" Two more officers joined in, chuckling. Briggs shook his head and called across the lobby. "Hey guys, we've got a VIP over here. Says she's some big shot." Laughs echoed. People filmed. Aisha stood there, humiliated, trembling, and furious. But she wasn't done. Slowly, deliberately, she reached into the one pocket Briggs hadn't checked. "Ma'am," he barked, hand flying to his holster. "If you take one more step—" She pulled out a small black leather folio. At first, the officers just frowned. Then Aisha flipped it open, and everything stopped. The buzzing lobby, the laughter, Briggs's smirk. Inside the folio, a federal identification card with a shimmering gold emblem and the unmistakable crest of the United States Secret Service. Briggs's eyes widened. But it wasn't the ID that froze him. It was the line printed beneath her photograph. Special Advisor, Presidential Security Division. And then came the moment that would go viral in less than 3 hours.
10 men in suits came sprinting from the elevator bank, earpieces in, eyes alert, formation perfect. "Ma'am? Ms. Turner, are you all right? Who touched you?" All 10 agents surrounded her instantly. The whole lobby gasped. Briggs stumbled backward, face draining of color. One of the agents, tall, stern, carrying authority like a weapon, stepped forward and stared directly at the officers. Then he looked at Aisha and said the words that shattered the entire room. "Ma'am, just say the word. Do you want them removed?" Every officer went still. Every phone in the lobby caught the moment. And every viewer who'd eventually watched the footage felt the same thing. This wasn't a crazy woman. This wasn't a liar.
This wasn't someone making a scene. This was a woman the Secret Service saluted. And Officer Briggs had just laid hands on the one person he never should have underestimated.
Officer Briggs didn't breathe for a full 3 seconds. He couldn't, because standing inches from him was Special Agent Donovan Hale, one of the most recognizable faces in the entire Presidential Protective Division, the kind of man local cops only saw on TV during State of the Union addresses and foreign leader visits. And he was looking at Briggs like he just found a threat. "Who put their hands on Miss Turner?" Agent Hale repeated, voice low, cold, and razor sharp. Briggs swallowed, but his voice came out fragile anyway. I didn't know. She didn't say." "She did," Hale cut in. "You ignored her. That's on record now." Phones were still recording. Half the lobby had stopped moving entirely, like New York's busiest federal building had suddenly fallen into a vacuum. Aisha stood there, rubbing the spot on her wrist where Briggs had grabbed her. Her chest still rose and fell too quickly. Her voice wasn't steady yet, but her eyes? Her eyes had changed. No more fear, just quiet, controlled disappointment, the kind that hurts worse than anger. Another agent approached Hale and whispered something in his ear. Hale's eyes narrowed. "Miss Turner, we just contacted your supervisor at the West Wing. He's on the line. He wants to confirm you're all right." The lobby gasped again. The West Wing! Briggs's knees went weak. The White House knew. The White House was calling about her. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This was career-ending, possibly life-changing. And then came the moment that sealed everything. Agent Hale gently touched his earpiece, listened for a long second, then nodded. "Yes, sir. I'll relay the message." He lowered his hand. "Miss Turner, the President's Chief of Staff sends his apologies. He said, and I quote, 'Whatever my advisor needs, she gets.'" You could hear a pin drop. Even the turnstile stopped clicking. Aisha closed her eyes. A tear slid down her cheek. She wasn't crying because she was fragile. She was crying because, after years of being overlooked, dismissed, talked over, and questioned, here, finally, was someone with authority saying, "You matter. Your voice matters. Your presence matters." And everyone in the room saw it. Every officer felt the weight shift. Briggs couldn't look at her. He stared at the floor, face chalk white. Agent Hale wasn't done. "Ms. Turner," he said with absolute respect, "what do you want us to do next?" She didn't answer immediately, not because she didn't know, but because for the first time in a very long time, she had options, real ones. And every officer in that lobby was about to find out what it meant when the woman they mocked, the woman they dismissed as crazy, finally chose to speak.
The hallway outside the glass office suddenly felt too small, too tight, like the walls themselves were leaning in to listen. Officer Brent crossed his arms, still wearing that smug, condescending grin, the kind that said he'd already decided exactly who Angela was. Another loud, dramatic black woman who didn't know her place. He muttered loudly to his partner, making sure Angela could hear. Some people just like causing scenes, probably off her meds. A couple of employees snickered. A security guard whispered, "Crazy alert," tapping his temple. Angela heard all of it. Every word. But what stunned the room wasn't her reaction, it was her silence. She didn't fight. She didn't yell. She didn't even blink. She simply lifted her chin, fixed her blazer, and stared straight through Brent, like she'd already seen how this would end. Brent didn't like that. Not one bit. "Ma'am," he said a little louder, voice dripping with mock patience, "you can demand all the supervisors you want. You're not getting one. Not until you calm down." His partner chimed in with a smirk. "Yeah, sweetheart, use your inside voice." A few people laughed. That's when Angela did something none of them expected. She pulled out her phone, not frantically, not nervously, but calmly like she was checking her grocery list, and tapped a single contact marked with a 3-letter abbreviation. Not mom, not sis, not lawyer. Just 3 simple letters. Brent rolled his eyes. "Oh, perfect," he said. "She's calling her cousin Tyrone to come finish the drama." His partner chuckled. "You think she's live streaming this? Maybe we should wave." But Angela didn't say a word.
She held the phone to our ear. And then the entire room froze. Her phone didn't ring. It didn't beep. It didn't even make a dialing sound. Instead, a crisp, controlled voice answered instantly. "Ma'am, are you in a safe position to speak?" The kind of voice you don't hear on normal calls. The kind of voice trained to respond fast. The kind of voice that makes grown men straighten their spines. Angela inhaled slowly. They watched her. They waited. Every mocking expression slowly shifted to concern, then confusion, then fear.
"Yes," she said calmly. "I'm at the county station. Local officers are refusing me a supervisor." The voice on the line tightened. You could hear the alert level rising. "Understood. Stay where you are. Team en route. ETA, 2 minutes." Brent laughed out loud. "Team? Lady, what team? The Avengers?" But Angela still didn't look at him. She just lowered the phone and said quietly, "They're coming." Someone snorted. Someone whispered, "She's insane." But the building, the atmosphere, the air itself, felt like it shifted. Something was coming. And for the first time that day, Officer Brent didn't look so sure of himself. At first, nobody believed her. Not the officers, not the clerks behind the desks, not the civilians waiting in the lobby. But then, the front door shuddered. Not like someone walked through, not like a breeze pushed them. No, they shook with the kind of force that made papers flutter and coffee ripple. Brent's partner straightened. Did you feel that?" Brent shrugged it off, forcing a laugh that sounded thinner now. "Old building, pipes or something." But before he even finished the sentence, boom, the door slammed open, not kicked, not pushed, just swept aside with absolute authority. And the station fell into a silence so heavy you could hear the air conditioner humming. In walked 4 men in charcoal suits. Not cops, not FBI, not state agents. No badges flashing, no words spoken. Just 4 figures with earpieces, emotionless faces, and a synchronized stride that told everyone in the room exactly one thing. These men answered to nobody in that building. The receptionist gasped.
One officer stood up so fast his chair toppled behind him. Brent? He actually stepped back. Who the hell are they? He whispered. The men didn't look at anyone but Angela. They walked past the metal detector, past the officers, past the front desk, straight to her. The tallest one, a broad-shouldered man with silver at his temples, stopped in front of Angela and dipped his head in a respectful nod. Not a greeting, an acknowledgement. Ma'am, we apologize for the delay. Every officer in the lobby stared. Angela didn't smile, didn't boast, didn't gloat. She simply answered, "Thank you, I wasn't sure you'd get the message in time." The man nodded again, then scanned the room with slow, sweeping eyes, the kind that memorized everything. "Who is the supervising officer here?" he asked. Nobody answered. He repeated it, voice firmer. "Who is the supervisor?" Finally, Brent, the same cop who had mocked her, dismissed her, belittled her, stepped forward. "Me," he said, voice cracking just a little. The agent studied him, saying nothing. Brent tried again, straightening his shoulders. "Officer Brent Cole, what's going on?" The silver-templed agent didn't blink. "You detained the wrong woman." Someone in the back whispered, "Oh my God." Brent frowned. "I was following protocol. She was being disruptive." "Your protocol includes mocking, provoking, and refusing a supervisor when requested?"
Brent opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I didn't know who she was." The man's lips twitched. Not a smile. Something colder. "That's the problem, officer. If you had known who she was, you would have treated her with basic respect. That means you don't belong in this badge." The station gasped. One of the clerks actually covered her mouth. Angela stood tall, composed, silent. Then, the silver-templed man turned to the others and gave a single nod. The three agents behind him moved as one, toward Brent. And suddenly, everyone understood. Angela wasn't crazy. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't making a scene. She was someone whose phone call sent federal security sprinting into a county station. And the cops who mocked her? They were about to find out exactly who they had been messing with.
Brent backed up until he hit the booking counter. His bravado, gone. His smirk, gone. His voice, barely a whisper. "Hold on, okay? We can talk about this." But the agents didn't slow. They approached him with the precision of surgeons and the certainty of men who never needed to raise their voices to assert power. The tallest agent lifted a hand and, for a moment, Brent exhaled like he'd been saved. But instead of stopping the others, the agent spoke calmly. "Secure him." Two agents grabbed Brent by the arms so swiftly he didn't even resist. He froze. Another stepped forward and removed the handcuffs from Brent's belt. Not to arrest Brent, to hand them to Angela. The entire station inhaled at once. The silver-templed agent turned to her and said in a tone that carried a strange mixture of deference and gravity, "Ma'am, would you like to do the honors?" Angela didn't take the cuffs. She didn't need to. Her voice was steady, collected, seasoned by experience and authority the room still didn't understand. "No, I don't need to humiliate him. He did that to himself." Brent's face flushed red, then white. One of the younger cops whispered under his breath, "What the hell is she? A judge? A senator?" His partner shook his head. "Nah, I think it's bigger." A clerk added, "The Secret Service doesn't move like this for just anybody." Brent swallowed hard. "What's happening? Why are you here? Who is she?" The silver-templed man didn't look at him. Instead, he pulled out a small black leather case. He opened it, but didn't show the badge inside to Brent. He showed it to Angela. "Ma'am, the director wants immediate confirmation before we proceed." Angela nodded. "Proceed." The agent finally turned the badge toward Brent, and Brent's knees actually buckled. Secret Service. Protective Division. Presidential Detail. The badge gleamed under the fluorescent lights like an accusation. No way," Brent stammered. Why would you?" He looked at Angela again, truly seeing her for the first time. Her calm, her posture, her authority, the phone call she made without hesitation, the respect these men treated her with. "Ma'am," one of the agents said, "we received your alert the moment you requested a supervisor. The system auto-escalated." Every officer listening froze. Auto-escalated? That meant only one thing. Angela was flagged as high priority in federal databases. Not for danger, for protection. Angela finally spoke. "I told you I needed a supervisor. You insisted on mocking me instead." Brent's breath hitched. She continued. "You put your hands on me. You tried to force me to the floor. You denied me the right to de-escalate. You denied me the dignity of being heard. And now," she gestured slightly towards the agents, "you're finally seeing the consequence." "What are you?" Brent whispered. Angela stepped closer, her face unreadable. "I am someone whose life cannot be mishandled, and you handled it carelessly." Suddenly, the station captain burst through his office door. "What is going on out here?" But the moment he saw the agents, he froze mid-stride. His face drained of color. Oh, no. He didn't greet them. He didn't demand answers. He walked directly to Angela, his posture low, respectful, almost fearful. "Ma'am, I had no idea you were here. Had I known—" The silver-templed agent cut him off sharply. "That's exactly the problem. None of you should need to know who she is to treat her with respect."
The captain bowed his head. The entire precinct felt smaller, quieter, heavier. Angela looked around the room, at the officers who snickered, the ones who smirked, the ones who doubted her. Then she looked back at Brent. "You still want to finish arresting me?" she asked softly. He shook his head so fast, it looked like he might fall apart. And that's when another voice cut through the silence. One of the clerks, trembling, called out, "Sir, you need to see this." She was holding a tablet, her eyes wide, her hands shaking. The captain took it from her. He looked at the screen, and his hand clamped over his mouth. "Dear God!" He turned the tablet around so the whole station could see. On the screen was a federal profile, a title, a name, a clearance level, and a single line in bold red. High protection status, direct oversight, United States Secret Service. But the detail that made the entire precinct gasp was the line beneath it. Relationship to protectee, mother. And the protectee's name was one every American knew. Every officer in the room whispered the same word at the same time. No.
The silence inside the precinct didn't feel normal. It didn't feel like fear. It didn't even feel like shame. It felt like history stopping mid-breath. Because on the tablet, under that bold red line, was a name that made knees buckle. Jackson Elias Carter, Director, U.S. Secret Service. Primary protectee, classified. Protective priority, maximum. Everyone in America knew that name. Every officer, every agent, every citizen who had ever watched a press briefing. Jackson Carter wasn't just any government official. He was the most influential, most powerful, most trusted law enforcement figure in the nation,
The man responsible for protecting world leaders, overseeing federal security, and coordinating national intelligence for the White House. And under all that authority, all that power, all that national weight, Angela was listed as Mother. The precinct erupted in a kind of stunned, whispering shock that felt unreal. No way. That's his mom? Here? At our station? We almost... Oh my God! The captain's voice cracked as he tried to speak. Ma'am? Mrs. Carter, had we known? Angela raised her palm. It was gentle, almost compassionate, but the effect was immediate. The entire station fell silent again. Captain, she said softly, that's exactly why this happened, because you shouldn't have to know who I am, or who my son is, to treat someone with basic decency. Her words landed harder than any punishment. Brent looked like he might faint. His body trembled, sweat dripping down his collar as the reality crashed into him. He hadn't humiliated some random woman. He hadn't shoved a powerless nobody. He had laid hands on the mother of the most protected, most powerful security official in the United States. The silver-templed agent finally spoke again, slow, measured, deadly calm. Mrs. Carter, the director was notified the moment you requested a supervisor. He is en route. ETA 11 minutes. Brent's eyes widened. He's coming here? Personally? The agent didn't answer. He didn't have to. The room felt like an earthquake rolled under their feet. Angela exhaled slowly, then looked around the station, every officer frozen, every breath held. You all assumed that because I wasn't dressed expensively, because I didn't raise my voice, because I didn't flash authority, that I must be beneath you. Her voice didn't tremble, it didn't rage, it didn't crack. It simply told the truth. And my son built an entire career making sure people like me are safe, making sure justice isn't optional, making sure no mother ever experiences what I just did. One young rookie officer whispered to another, "Dude, the director is coming here. We're dead. We're all dead." The other whispered back, "No, he is." His eyes flicked to Brent. The silver-templed agent stepped closer to Brent, lowering his voice just enough for everyone to hear. You assaulted a high-priority, federally protected individual. That is a federal crime. You attempted to forcibly restrain her. That is a federal offense. And you interfered with a live protective protocol. Brent swallowed so hard it was audible. I didn't know. That's the job, the agent said coldly. You don't get to not know.
The captain tried again, desperate. Ma'am, I assure you, disciplinary action will be... Angela turned to him, her voice firm, unyielding. This isn't about discipline. It's about culture, about the way your officers laugh first, question later, and apologize never. The clerk with the tablet stepped forward timidly. Mrs. Carter, there's something else. On your file, it says you're registered for immediate protective extraction. The whole room stiffened. Extraction meant one thing. She was as important as a diplomat. The silver-templed agent nodded. Yes, Mrs. Carter is classified. Her movements are monitored for her safety due to her son's status. A ripple of realization spread through the room like heat through metal. She wasn't just someone important. She was someone whose life mattered to the federal government more than anyone in this station had ever imagined. And they had shoved her, mocked her, dismissed her, humiliated her.
The doors at the front of the station suddenly buzzed. An alert sounded, loud and sharp. Everyone turned. The silver-templed agent straightened. The others shifted posture instantly, like soldiers preparing for inspection. The captain whispered, voice trembling, "He's here." Brent staggered back until his spine hit the wall. Angela inhaled slowly, bracing herself. And the room fell into a silence so deep it felt like the world stopped spinning. Because walking through those doors, in a dark suit, flanked by 2 more agents, expression carved from stone, was Director Jackson Elias Carter. And the moment he entered, every cop in the building felt it. This wasn't going to be a conversation. This was going to be judgment.
Director Jackson Elias Carter didn't walk into the precinct. He cut into it. The air around him shifted like pressure dropping before a storm. His presence didn't need words, introduction, or authority. He was authority. 6'4", shoulders broad, precision-cut suit, eyes sharp as broken glass, Jackson looked like a man carved from discipline and duty. A man who had seen danger, negotiated with nations, and kept presidents breathing. And right now, he looked furious. Not loud furious, not ranting furious. Silent furious. The kind that makes grown men feel their heartbeat in their teeth. The captain tried to stand tall, but his legs trembled like wet paper. "Director Carter, sir." Jackson didn't even glance at him. His eyes locked on Angela, and in one instant, his expression changed, just for her. The steel melted, the jaw unclenched, the storm paused. "Mom," he breathed, voice breaking with a quiet, terrified softness no one had ever heard from the most feared law enforcement figure in the country. He closed the distance in 3 long strides. "Are you hurt?" Angela gave a small shake of her head. "I'm all right." But Jackson looked again, closer, deeper, and found the faint red mark on her upper arm where Brent had shoved her. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. He reached out, barely touching the bruise with his fingertip. When he looked up, the fury was back. Only now, it had purpose and a target. His gaze pinned Brent like a spear. "You put your hands on my mother." It wasn't a question. It wasn't even a sentence. It was a death sentence spoken quietly. Brent's voice cracked. "Director Carter, sir, I didn't know." Jackson took 1 step toward him. Just one, but it felt like the entire earth tilted. "That's the problem," Jackson growled. "You didn't know because you didn't ask. You didn't listen. You didn't observe. You reacted violently, recklessly, cruelly." His voice grew sharper with each word. "You don't get to put your hands on anyone in this country, and you especially don't get to put your hands on a woman asking for help." The captain swallowed, stepping forward with a trembling salute. "Sir, I assure you, we will carry out—" Jackson turned his head 1 inch, and the captain went silent instantly. "Don't interrupt me." The captain froze. Jackson faced the room, his voice rising, not in volume, but in weight. "My mother came here with a simple request. Instead, she was mocked, shoved, laughed at, dismissed, and treated like trash. Not because she was dangerous, not because she broke a law." His eyes swept across them like a blade. "You all forgot something critical." His hand tapped his suit jacket lightly. "I don't care if she was a senator, a judge, a CEO, or a homeless woman off the street. You had no right to treat her the way you did." A young rookie whispered under his breath, "He's right." Jackson heard it. He turned, eyes softening just for that young officer. "What's your name, son?" "Rodriguez, sir." "Remember this, Officer Rodriguez. Real policing isn't measured by how you treat the powerful. It's measured by how you treat the people you assume are powerless." Rodriguez nodded, swallowing hard. Jackson's attention snapped back to Brent. "You're done." Brent's knees buckled.
Sir, please, this is my career, my life. You should have thought about that before you put your hands on her. Two federal agents stepped forward. Brent went pale. Wait, no, please! Director Carter! Take him into custody, Jackson ordered without looking at Brent. Federal charges, excessive force, civil rights violations, failure to follow protocol. The agents moved. Brent stumbled backward, pleading, Please, please, I didn't know who she was. Jackson's voice hit him like a hammer. That's exactly why you're being arrested.
As Brent was cuffed, crying, begging, voices around him whispered, He's finished. He'll never work again. Man, he messed with the wrong mom. But Jackson wasn't done. He turned to the captain. This precinct will undergo full audit and retraining, effective immediately. I want every complaint from the last 5 years reopened, every incident reviewed, every officer evaluated. The captain nearly fainted. Yes, sir. Jackson looked around one last time. A warning, a promise, and a judgment all in one. Then he turned back to Angela, offering his arm. Come on, Mom, he said softly. Let's go home. She placed her hand on his arm, steady and graceful. As they walked out of the precinct, every officer stood at attention, silent, humbled, shaken to their core. And as Angela passed, the same officers who mocked her now lowered their heads in respect. Once the doors closed behind them, the precinct felt like a church emptied after a sermon. Everyone stood there stunned, breathing shallow, knowing one truth. They hadn't just met a powerful man today. They had met the standard, and none of them would ever forget it.
The walk from the precinct to the black SUV waiting outside felt like a lifetime compressed into 30 silent steps. Angela's hand shook slightly in Jackson's arm. Not from fear, not anymore, but from the weight of everything she had carried alone for so long. Her son opened the car door for her like she was royalty, not because she was the mother of a federal director, but because she was his mother. He slid into the seat beside her, the door closing with a soft, final click that felt like the whole world taking a breath. For the first time since the nightmare began, he finally spoke. Mom, why didn't you call me first? His voice wasn't angry. It was wounded. Angela looked down at her hands, hands that had washed dishes, braided hair, carried burdens heavier than any badge. I didn't want to bother you, baby, she whispered. You already carry the world on your shoulders. Jackson swallowed hard. His jaw clenched, eyes burning. You're the only reason I can carry it. She touched his cheek, the way she did when he was little. And the strongest man in the car looked like a child again. The country finds out. By morning, the incident had leaked, not by Angela, not by Jackson, but by an officer, Rodriguez, the only one who stood in that room with a conscience that didn't let him sleep. He didn't post the video to shame the precinct. He posted it to teach America a lesson. Within hours, it exploded across every platform. Federal director's mother mistreated by local police. Watch his response. Homeless-looking woman mocked by officers. Turns out she raised one of the most powerful men in the U.S. The day a precinct learned who they were speaking to. But the internet didn't care about titles. They cared about what mattered. A black mother walked into a police station asking for help, and walked out being saluted. Her story spoke to people who'd been ignored, dismissed, brushed aside, all because someone thought they weren't important enough to treat with dignity. Millions of comments poured in. Every mother deserves this level of respect. She shouldn't have to be someone's mom to be treated like a human being. This is why humility matters. You never know who you're talking to. I cried when he said, Mom, this one hit deep. Black mothers deserve protection, not mockery. The story didn't go viral because of the scandal. It went viral because of the truth behind it.
Respect shouldn't depend on who someone's child is. The changes begin. A week later, Angela stood outside the same precinct. Only this time, she wasn't alone, and she wasn't shaking. The entire department lined up outside the building, not by force, but by conscience. The captain stepped forward first. "Miss Carter, we failed you. We failed our oath, and we're here to make it right." Angela didn't smile. She didn't soften. She didn't pretend their apologies erased the fear and humiliation. She simply nodded. "Do better," she said quietly, "for the next mother who walks through those doors." Her words hit harder than anything Jackson said, because she wasn't demanding revenge. She was demanding change. And that was harder to ignore. Over the next month, every officer underwent mandatory training personally overseen by federal staff. Complaints long buried were reopened. Procedures changed. Posters went up reading, "Dignity first, rank second." Rodriguez, whose conscience changed everything, was promoted. Brent? He lost his badge permanently and now faced federal charges. And through it all, Angela stayed quiet, humble, steady, just as she always had.
One evening at a public ceremony, the mayor invited Angela on stage. Jackson stood behind her, tall, proud, but this moment wasn't about him. It was about the woman who worked double shifts, the woman who held her family together, the woman who raised a protector of the nation, the woman who walked into a police station asking for help and walked out a symbol of dignity. The mayor cleared his throat. "Mrs. Carter, you reminded this city what humanity looks like. For that, we thank you." The crowd stood, a full standing ovation, not for power, not for a title, but for her. Jackson leaned down and whispered, "You didn't just change a precinct, Mom. You changed the entire conversation." Angela looked at him with soft, proud eyes. "I didn't do it alone," she said. "Baby, you heard me." The message to the audience. And this is where the story becomes more than a story, because this isn't just about police or power or titles. This is about the world we live in, where people look at clothing instead of character, where they judge struggle instead of strength, where they assume worth based on wealth. And every viewer, especially every older American watching, knows the truth. Dignity should never depend on how someone looks, or who they know, or who they raised. So here's the message Angela would want us to hear. The next time someone walks into your life needing help, give them respect, not because of who they are, but because of who you are. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment with the words, "Respect is a right," and tag a mother whose strength deserves recognition. Because at the end of the day, the world doesn't change because of power. It changes because someone decides to treat another human being with dignity, just like Angela Carter did, just like her son did, just like we all should.